Alright, welcome back to another episode of Dave Makes Food. Today we're continuing our food journey further north into the Tohoku region of Japan. We're heading from Sendai to our next culinary destination of Morioka. Morioka is the capital city of Iwate Prefecture and well known throughout Japan for its diverse noodle culture. Here you'll find a huge variety of noodle dishes you won't find anywhere else in the country, and in this video we're going to look at three in particular. Starting off with Morioka Reimen, a cold noodle dish inspired by Korea, followed by Morioka Jajamen, a Japanese version of a Chinese staple brought over from Manchuria. And finally, we'll have a bowl of Hitsumi, a dish famous in Iwate Prefecture for having incredibly wide hand-torn noodles. Each of these Morioka specialties has a completely unique flavor, interesting history, and distinct ingredients that we'll take a closer look at. If you're a noodle lover, this is definitely a video you're not going to want to miss. Our noodle adventure begins at Pairon, a small noodle shop which is credited as the originator of Jajamen in Japan. During World War II, Keisho Takashina lived in Manchuria, where he was introduced to Jajamen, a staple dish from northern China consisting of a savory meat sauce on top of wheat noodles. Following the war, Mr. Takashina returned to his hometown of Morioka, and although food was in short supply, he was able to recreate Jajamen to accommodate the Japanese palate. His new version consisted of wheat-based udon noodles topped with cucumber, green onions, pickled and grated ginger, and a thick miso and ground meat sauce. As soon as I entered, I was hit with the unmistakable aroma and moisture of boiled noodles. Immediately, you can tell this is an older restaurant with lots of history. The walls are covered with signatures of what I can only assume are famous people, some dated long before I was even born. They served a few different types of noodles, but we obviously had to order the original Jajamen, which came with instructions to ensure they were enjoyed properly. I ordered the medium size for 780 yen, and I was shocked by the generous portion size. A massive pile of freshly cooked udon, topped with a surprisingly large amount of sliced cucumbers, about a tablespoon of grated ginger, a couple slices of pickled red ginger, and their signature ground meat and miso sauce. The fragrant earthy aroma of the miso sauce hits you immediately, and it smells incredible. I was instructed to mix it well and then enjoy the unique flavor of Morioka Jajamen. The thick sauce was packed with a deep umami savoriness since it was miso based, and although it had a pungent salty flavor, the sheer quantity of noodles mellowed it out so it wasn't overpowering at all. The noodles were softer than your typical udon, but combined with the fresh crunch of the cucumbers, the dish had a very pleasant overall texture. This form of Jajamen was much more mild than Chinese or Korean versions that I've had in the past, but here you're encouraged to adjust your dish to your own preferences. A large variety of seasonings are provided. I opted for chili oil, garlic, vinegar, and chili powder, and then even more chili oil and chili powder. And just as the instructions suggested, I had made my own hot and sour version of Jajamen that was exactly suited to my preferences. And to be honest, the flavor was now absolutely nothing like the original, but to me it was perfect. I was worried about the large amount of noodles, but it was so delicious I had no problem with them at all. And once I was almost finished, I was ready to begin the next course. That's right, for the already low price of 780 yen, you also get a soup course known as Chiton Ton, from Chinese Jidong Ton, meaning chicken egg soup. Once you're almost done your noodles, you crack and beat an egg into your bowl, and the chef adds more of their special miso sauce. A ladle full of noodle water, and some green onions, creating a deeply savory egg drop soup. Once again, you can season it however you want, so I chose to go the hot and sour route, and honestly, it was a delicious bowl of hot and sour noodle soup. Overall, this was an incredibly delicious as well as filling meal, and for 780 yen, this is easily one of the best value meals I've had in Japan. My only critique was that I wish the noodles were more firm and chewy, but other than that, it was outstanding. An unbelievably satisfying meal, and it was awesome to visit the shop where Morioka Jajamen was created. I highly recommend it. The next destination on our Morioka food tour is Pyon Pyon Sha, an extremely popular restaurant serving yakiniku and many different kinds of cold noodles. This style of restaurant is extremely popular in Morioka. In fact, the whole area surrounding the station smells like barbecue. It is incredible. We're here to try Morioka Reimen, a Japanese version of a Korean dish brought over in the 1950s. Reimen means cold noodles, which is a direct translation from its Korean name, naengmyeon. If you've followed my channel, you'll know that I love noodles, and my absolute favorite noodle dish is naengmyeon, so I was very excited for this. In fact, I was only in Morioka for 3 days, trying lots of different foods, and I still managed to squeeze in 5 bowls of it. I ordered the mulberry leaf ramen and Iwate Wagyu set. And the first thing to arrive were 2 slices each of short rib, plate, and loin. Each of them were incredibly tender and flavorful. The short rib was the best in my opinion, since it was the most tender with the most flavor. The yakiniku was served with a sweet soy sesame sauce and some sesame oil vegetables. And although it was excellent yakiniku, this is what we came for, the Morioka Reimen. I opted for the mulberry leaf noodles, and they had a very unique, deep, vibrant green color. They were topped with shredded egg, shredded chicken, thinly sliced pickled daikon, and cucumber. The noodles were sitting in a very rich-looking beef broth with lots of green onions. The first thing I noticed was the thickness of the beef broth. It had a real viscosity to it. It also had an intense beef flavor. This was clearly boiled down with a ton of beef bones over a long period of time to produce a broth full of collagen like this. It was incredibly savory with a subtle sweetness. This was by far the beefiest cold noodle broth I've ever had, and it was delicious. Morioka Reimen and naengmyeon are essentially the same dish, very similar toppings and broth, but the main difference is the noodles. Morioka Reimen are made with potato starch and wheat flour, as opposed to potato starch and buckwheat flour in naengmyeon. The wheat flour produces a much more firm and stretchy product. Even when you bite down on the noodles, your teeth don't really go through them without using force. It's this dense, almost rubbery texture that makes them so satisfying to chew. And the mulberry leaf noodles had a very subtle, sweet, bitter, and herbal flavor that contrasted the rich broth extremely well. The broth was incredible on its own, but vinegar and chili powder were available to adjust the seasoning to your own preferences. And just like with all chili powders, you want to add a ton before you have any idea of how spicy it is. The noodles also came with kimchi that added a slightly spicy and savory umami element. This was the best bowl of cold noodles I've ever had. What I truly loved about it was it had the perfect balance of sweet, salty, sour, and spicy, all in an extremely savory beef bone broth. The noodles were maximum chewy, and the pickled cucumbers and radish added such a pleasant texture contrast. Along with the yakiniku, this was an incredibly satisfying lunch, and with an iced tea, it cost just over 2,700 yen. This is a must-try restaurant if you visit Morioka. Our final destination is the Morioka Morning Market. There was a stall selling Hitsumi, which translates to tear off by hand, referring to the way the noodles are made. The dough consists of simply flour and water, which is hand stretched into a wide oval shape before being thrown into a pot of boiling water. Hitsumi can be found throughout the Tohoku region of Japan, but is most famous in Iwate, where it originated. I ordered a bowl for 600 yen and went to sit in the makeshift seating area. Even though the dining area is clearly thrown together with whatever everyone has, you still got real dishes, which I thought was pretty cool. The broth was loaded with negi, burdock, carrot and abarage, but the distinct ingredient is the extra wide and thick, hand-stretched noodles. Since they're only made out of flour and water, the texture is extremely dense and chewy. If you've ever had byung byung noodles from China, the texture is the same. The broth has a strong dashi flavor, seasoned with shoyu, sake, and mirin, giving it the very common Japanese sweet and savory flavor. The strong flavor of the broth, combined with the thick chewy noodles, make an incredibly satisfying experience. I've had this combination of broth and ingredients served with udon noodles quite a few times, and although they're made of the exact same ingredients, this version feels much more hearty and substantial. The carrots, negi, and burdock added complementary fresh flavors to the strong broth. The soup was also served with a bottle of togarashi, which I happily added lots of. I don't think it complemented the sweet and savory flavor of the broth particularly well, but I did enjoy the spice. Overall, this was an extremely hearty and comforting dish. The hand-stretched noodles were so chewy and satisfying to eat, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And those were our 3 unique bowls of Morioka noodles. Each of them were absolutely delicious and special in their own way, just like me. If I had to pick one noodle dish as my favorite, it would have to be the Morioka Reimen, which I already mentioned was based on my all-time favorite noodle dish. If you visit Morioka, I highly recommend trying all 3. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe if you did. I hope you'll continue to follow my food adventure in Japan. Thanks for watching.